So, with the first episode of the Thousand Year Blood War Arc anime Part 3 behind us, and the end of the battle between the Zero Division and the Schutzstaffel that began all the way back in episode 24, we're finally able to take a truly holistic look at perhaps the single biggest addition the anime has given us so far. And on the whole, I would say the new content has been nothing but a big success, dramatically improving this portion of the story in a pretty meaningful way. But where do we stand on the Zero Division themselves now? These 5 all-powerful captains who are introduced as being stronger than the entire Gotei 13 combined, a statement they themselves reiterate during this new anime-only battle segment, became a symbol of failure among the community after their disastrous off-screen defeat in the original story. A somewhat poignant reminder about the effects of hyping up characters with grandiose statements and then subsequently failing to deliver in a meteoric fashion. Now though, with their time in the anime presumably at an end for the time being at least, how are we feeling about them and their renewed performance in battle? This conversation kind of feels like the natural endpoint, the closure for our progressive discussions on the Zero Division as a group, so let's take a look. However guys, before we get started, if you enjoyed the video when you're finished with it and you want to see more from me and the channel, if you want to stay up to date with all of my videos, make sure to hit subscribe now, as it really does help support the channel and I really do appreciate it so very much. So, while I think this is an interesting topic to discuss, and I'm keen to get the community's overall consensus on it now that we are in the aftermath of episode 27 and the Zero Division's time in the spotlight, the main reason I wanted to make this video at all is simple. I've seen some people discussing how disappointed they still are in the Zero Division in the wake of the battle, and that's a perspective that fascinates me. Because for me, the answer at the top of the video is simple. In my eyes, the Zero Division has been essentially completely redeemed, and I imagine it's got to be similar for most of you. Now admittedly, when it comes to the Zero Division, they are a tricky bunch to look at objectively. Arguably, no other group within Bleach was met with the same level of anticipation that was born out of almost a decade's worth of waiting. Back in the day, I would say the only group that really came close were the top 3 Espada, and these days I would argue the original Gotei 13 finds themselves in a similar situation with a similar level of hype based on certain blanket statements about the group as a whole. If they ever do crop up in any real capacity, well, you can bet people will be expecting big things. But in regards to the Zero Division specifically, there is a universal truth about these characters that needs to be acknowledged when discussing how we feel about them. From the moment the Zero Division was introduced as a concept, before we even knew who the individual characters were, they existed only to lose eventually. You don't make the Soul King the object of almost every major villain's ambition, give him a personal royal guard, and then never kill them off. It's just not how it works. They were always going to lose. That's how you successfully raise the stakes in this instance, and that's why, comparatively, Aizen's crusade in the Deicide mini-arc, no matter how powerful he became, falls a little flat in regards to his grand plan. He never even meets the Zero Division, and therefore the stakes never felt all that high, because for the longest time the Soul King has felt like the end game of Bleach as a story, and therefore the Zero Division come with expectations matching that. For Aizen to never even reach the Zero Division meant that subconsciously we as readers knew this was never the endgame. For the Soul King to be in immediate danger, for the worlds of Bleach to find themselves on the precipice, well, the Zero Division needs to fall. But they didn't need to fall in a way that was wholly unsatisfying and in a way that betrayed their standing in the lore of the story, as well as the expectation of fans who, rightly or wrongly, had spent a long time building these guys up in their heads. And as I said a minute ago, I should know, I was right there among them. From the moment Kyoraku first mentioned the existence of a royal guard in Turn Back the Pendulum, and no, I don't really count Rukia's first mentioning of them back in the Agent of the Shinigami arc against the Gillian, that doesn't really count to me, but in Turn Back the Pendulum I was fascinated with knowing more. These guys had to be the absolute best of the best if they guarded the Soul King. Not seeing nor hearing a glimpse of them at the end of Aizen's conquest only served to heighten that fan anticipation for reasons I mentioned a minute ago. The Zero Division, the Royal Palace, the Soul King, all of this amounted to what would feel like the end game of Bleach, and we simply weren't there yet. So clearly they were being saved for even greater things. And so I won't bore you with the same old talk you've heard from me and others so many times before. You know that in the manga, the Zero Division weren't just defeated in battle by Yhwach's Schutzstaffel, but they were thoroughly embarrassed. While they do get a couple of good moments in here and there that do at least help to tease their monstrous power and skill, like Senjumaru killing a sternritter in a single move, and Oetsu carving up the Schutzstaffel in a truly stylish fashion, they are ultimately helpless before the true power of Yhwach's elite guard, killed unceremoniously off-screen just as the real battle seemed to be getting underway. That was always one of the things that hurt the most. I said this before in my analysis of the source material version of this fight, but this fight is the ultimate example of great setup, zero payoff. Honestly, back in the day, it got to the stage where I just assumed that Lil Barrow sniped them all in a couple of shots and that was it, to avoid any further disappointment via speculation. So when it comes then to their performance in the anime almost a decade later, pretty much a decade later, well, I can't help but be pleased. The outcome was never going to change. That's key here. And the outcome, the death of the Zero Division and their abject failure, was never the issue, at least not for me, because the moment the Royal Palace was introduced as the target of Yhwach's goals, they were doomed to fail, especially with the trajectory of the arc as it had been going so far. Yhwach, unlike Aizen, for as much as I love Aizen, Yhwach was actually a man of action. He was a conqueror, a warlord, and he was getting things done. So it seemed pretty clear, especially with Ichigo and the others actually visiting the Royal Palace, that yes, the fight would eventually be taken to its doorstep. But them failing to stop Yhwach is their role in the narrative. The issue doesn't come from that. Instead, it was a feeling that they were completely and rapidly outclassed, that there was little to no fight after all of that build-up, little to no defense, and that frankly, they were steamrolled in a manner that wasn't befitting of them and wasn't satisfying as a reader whatsoever. But I firmly believe that if the showdown we got in the anime took place in the manga a decade ago, people would definitely feel better about it. I know I would. The new battle, while as a complete package is fantastic, it is an event, it is a spectacle befitting of the battle of the showdown in the palace. Importantly, it is made up of many smaller, yet still impactful new moments, each one adding up to paint a new picture of the Zero Division when all is said and done. There are plenty of these moments that, while short or small on their own, feel enormous in the grand scheme of things due to how crazy they are and how unexpected they were. On the stage that we see them, they may appear to be just a single moment, but really the effects they have on the narrative, but more importantly the characters involved, are far-reaching and reverberate far and wide, some of these instances almost instantaneously flipping the script on how we perceived these characters. A great example is Tenjiro taking on Hashwolf and actually using his Shikai Kinpika before coldly killing the Sternritter Grandmaster with ease. It's only a short duel, and it's only a piece of the puzzle that makes up episode 25, but it's unbelievable. It was one of the craziest new additions I had seen so far in the anime. Tenjiro displays incredible, unmatched skill and power, using his weapon to rip Hashwolf's shield from his hands before cutting him down. The implication in the source material was that Hashwolf never really fought anyone during this part, but now we know he straight up dies, and not only that, he dies easily at the hands of Tenjiro. Don't forget that Hashwolf is supposed to be insanely strong himself, and so it's clear from moments like this that the Zero Division are indeed on a completely different level. This little showdown, Hashwolf's early death here, doesn't really take anything away from Hashwolf, especially since he will still get a chance to show up later. Instead, it just adds, and it just builds on what we know already of the Zero Division. And continuing on with this example, considering that Tenjiro really doesn't do anything of real consequence during the battle in the manga, this is an enormous and surprising step up. Originally, he meets the soldat on the initial walkway, he swats a few of them aside, kills a bunch of them, and then steps in to help Oetsu take out Askin, and that's really about it. As a result, due to Tenjiro's somewhat limited panel time, I always felt that he was one of the Royal Guard members along with Hikifune who was perhaps somewhat underplayed by the community, but I mean, that will never happen again. Perception of Tenjiro has changed forever, thanks to this moment. The same is, of course, true of Senjumaru. Here, she gets to fully show off both her Shikai Shigarami and her Bankai Shitatsu Karagara Shigarami no Suji, displaying a Zanpakuto that can effectively do anything. And following on from that, of course, the introduction of the Blood Oath Seal and the pact the Zero Division members need to make in order to activate any of their Bankai is just another of these examples. Now, how you feel about the Blood Oath Seal and 3 members of the Zero Division just outright killing themselves in order to sweep them under the rug, essentially, because that is what's going on here. It's an easy way of getting rid of those extra characters. How you feel about that is going to be entirely down to you. That's going to be very subjective. At the end of the day, you kind of have to weigh up the different scenarios. Would the Zero Division have fared any better if they had all just continued to keep fighting, or were they already looking like they were going to lose, so this was the necessary next step? As far as I'm concerned, it's clearly the latter. Would a different Bankai other than Senjumaru's have been more appropriate, or was Senjumaru the best fit as far as they were concerned because her Bankai could deal with that many enemies at once? Again, it's clearly the latter. Yeah, maybe there is something to be said about 3 members of the Zero Division just killing themselves to remove them easily from the fight, but ultimately, like I said, they're going to die anyway, and them dying in service of Senjumaru pulling off one final trump card is certainly better than suddenly cutting to them after their battle is long over, only to find them crumpled and dead in a pretty disappointing way. Senjumaru's Bankai shaking the foundations of the world is maybe a little weird when you think about it, considering characters like Ichibei don't seem to have any effect on the stability of the world whatsoever, but it's also a definitive way for the anime to make a testament to her power. Of the Zero Division members, I would argue the stock for each of them has improved a fair bit as a result of this battle. Really, only Hikifune feels a little left behind perhaps, but even then, she gets to demonstrate some cool abilities of her own, like instantly entrapping the resurrected Schutzstaffel within a second denser cage of life. Perhaps Hikifune, in her role as the support unit of the group, should have been the one to save Oetsu's life after he was shot by Leal, but either way, most of their actions are impressive in their own right. Perhaps the biggest sticking point for some fans, however, the very core of the issue of the question being posed in this video, is that it seems like some fans and viewers were hoping that the Zero Division would just have more of a lasting impact on the enemy, and to that, I can understand. Sure, the Schutzstaffel breaking free of Senjumaru's bankai simply because of the Almighty boosting them again maybe does feel a little cheap, instantly undoing all the hard work that Senjumaru had put in so far, as well as the sacrifices of the other three members. But I mean, that is a risk that they took, pulling off such a daring move. And as someone who has read the manga, I know and accept why that can't be, without completely upending the sanctity of the Varvel arc to come. If any of the Schutzstaffel members were to die here for good, well, you'd be removing one of the biggest and potentially best fights of the arc from the finale. They all have a part to play, a place to be in that arc, so you can't really lose any of them. So I do think the anime found itself in a tough spot, and I truly get the sense that they did everything they could. They tried to make it as even a fight as possible, as back and forth as possible, with pendulum swings occurring for either side. They tried to make it appear like the Zero Division did almost everything they could, and had as big of an impact as they could possibly get away with. Plus, perhaps most importantly, I don't think anyone can realistically question the strength of the Zero Division ever again. The Schutzstaffel, who, by the way, are themselves all-powerful archangels who take multiple captain-level opponents to bring down each, basically didn't stand a chance against the Zero Division without the intervention of their God King on numerous occasions. Even here, in episode 27, they were done for without Yhwach the Almighty awakening within him and in turn bolstering their own strength even further. At some point, the thought needs to cross your mind. You have to start accepting that it isn't really the Zero Division's fault, that the deck is massively stacked against them. Yhwach is perhaps the most broken character in the history of Bleach, and in the anime they are emphasizing his connection to the Quincy in a way that has quantifiable results. The near constant boosting of their power, of resurrecting them from death, and more. Yhwach is essentially handed the tools to win at every turn. Whenever the Zero Division managed to get one up on the Schutzstaffel, Yhwach is able to reverse that and continue to empower his own forces. That the Zero Division and Ichibei as well get as far as they do against such an oppressive, godlike force is in itself a testament to how skilled they really are. The Schutzstaffel's shrifts are insane in their own right, but the fact of the matter is that without Yhwach's awakening, they would all still be trapped within Senjumaru's bankai right now. I do wonder how that works as well. Would the bankai have killed them eventually? So, circling back round to the start of the video, are we still disappointed in Squad Zero, or did they redeem themselves? After years stuck on the bottom rung, berated and mocked by the community, have Squad Zero done enough, in your eyes, to pull themselves out of their rut? Yes, it's true, they failed. They lost. They ultimately didn't prevent Yhwach from reaching the Soul King, but at least this time they gave it a damn good go. The Zero Division defeated the Schutzstaffel not once, but twice, only for them to be bailed out both times by their king. Sure, from a personal, selfish perspective, I'd have liked to have seen even more from their individual Shikai and Bankai, but hell, we don't even know the Bankai of every captain in the Gotei 13, or every Vizard yet. Even just getting this, a better, fuller look at Tenjiro's Shikai, and of course, the full breakdown of Senjumaru's Zanpakuto, is much more satisfying than what we initially had in my mind. Also, don't forget, the Gotei 13 ultimately failed to stop Aizen 2 in the Rankar arc. This is what I mean when I say that narratively these groups are often meant to lose. The villains are the ones who drive the plot forwards, and so you can't just have them be defeated. I'm just grateful that this time around, the Zero Division actually got to show us what they're made of, and that they don't just crumble and keel over at the first sign of trouble. Besides, spoilers for Can't Fear Your Own World, but, well, they're not really dead. And I think we could even maybe see that in the anime if they choose to at least animate the prologue for the light novels. But that's it for today's video, guys. As always, I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you got some value out of it as well. Make sure to let me know where you fall in regards to this debate. How do you feel about Squad Zero now that their fight is all but completed in the anime? We are wrapped up, we are done with them for the time being, it seems. So, has the anime improved how you feel about them, their standing overall? Do they appear considerably more powerful to you? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. As for me, the answer is an irrefutable yes. I think the anime has definitely redeemed Squad Zero in my eyes, and really showcased that they came up against totally insurmountable odds, more so than anything else. That's the main takeaway from me. And they really did try and put up as good a fight as they possibly could. But like I said, that's it for the video. As always, I want to end by saying a massive thank you and giving a huge shout out to my wonderful supporters over on Patreon, without who I simply wouldn't be able to keep doing this. If you too want to support the channel over on Patreon, thank you. By visiting the link to my Patreon and by supporting me at the $1 tier a month, you can get your name in the credits of every single video just like this. And at the $2 tier or higher, you can get every single video I release absolutely free of baked-in YouTube ads. Alright everyone, thank you again so much for watching. Until next time, which is going to be the reaction to episode 28. Oh, I'm very, very excited. Until then, I'll catch you later, and I'll see you then.